Senate Homeland Security Committee Chair Rand Paul. Senator Paul, thank you for joining us. A remarkable hearing, and you and your colleagues did a remarkable job, a masterclass of asking the questions that millions of Americans wanted the answer to. And Dr. Fauci, the face of science, the face of our coronavirus response, was giving 111 reasons to not trust him anymore. My question to you is, what do you feel was accomplished today, and where do we go from here?
You know, I was disappointed. I had hoped that he would come forward and perhaps apologize. 1 million Americans died, and many people, myself included, believe that this virus came from a lab that was funded by the U.S. government. The decision for that funding came from Anthony Fauci. A terrible mistake, maybe one of the greatest mistakes in modern medical history, to fund this dangerous research in a less than safe lab in a totalitarian country. But I think what we did learn is we saw a constellation of what he was saying privately and then what he was saying publicly. One of the things we learned this week is that in January of 2020, he was saying privately, we now know that the earliest cases did not come from the wet market. So what that was an admission that the wet market with the exotic animals wasn't the origin. But he then argued for years and years publicly, oh no, it came from the wet market, it came from the wet market, because that supported a natural origin, which went against the laboratory origin, which he bore some responsibility for because he funded this lab. So I think we did see all of the facts brought together. We saw that the scientists that he brought together in January 2020 all privately thought that the virus, when they looked at the genetic sequence, that it looked manipulated, as if it had been manipulated purposely in a lab. But then we found out that these scientists were saying something different publicly. We also found that he got $1 million award, but that he used the work of 8 government workers to fill out the paperwork for an award, that he got them to nominate him, that he was discussing with people, hey, nominate me for this prize. And if it has to go through ethics, let's make sure we get the money. And everybody make sure we try to get to yes on that I can keep the money. $1 million prize is inappropriate for government scientists. It's inappropriate for government bureaucrats, and it's inappropriate to use government workers to do it. So even though he didn't testify, I think we learned a lot about him. We learned a lot about his decision-making process, and really we learned a lot about the things we need to try not to do again. I pointed out at the very beginning that I think there is still some gain-of-function, dangerous research going on monkeypox. I think he knows about it. He refused to testify, but I think others in government know about it. My goal is to shut that down also. President Trump has shut down gain-of-function research, and that's a good thing. Right. But I'm still looking for some that may occur, and I want to make sure that we pass a law that says it never occurs again.
But with Fauci, what comes next? You and your committee will vote next week, as you announced, and to hold him in contempt. What does that look like? Walk me through it, because obviously it would then need to go to the Senate floor, and it would need 60 votes to clear a filibuster. And based on the way the Democrats reacted today, it doesn't appear you would have those possible votes.
Well, it's not actually a law, it's a resolution. So it's a resolution saying that he should be considered for charges for contempt of Congress. I think if that resolution passes our committee, which it will, that it could simply be referred directly to the Department of Justice. Now, we can debate that, but since it's not really a law, it doesn't have an exact procedure. It doesn't have a procedure where it goes to the president for signature. It doesn't have to go to the House. I myself have individually referred him in the past for prosecution. I sent 2 letters saying that he destroyed records and he lied to Congress, both felonies. I sent that to the Biden DOJ. It wasn't acted upon. I've also sent it to the Trump DOJ twice. I've sent information and evidence saying it did so. So I think there's a possibility that we don't go to the whole Senate floor, but that the committee passes it and we go directly to the Department of Justice.
Well, we will be following that. So with your investigation, will we see other witnesses called, and will you continue to hold hearings?
One witness we're very interested in is Dr. Fauci's assistant, who says that she deleted tons of emails. I doubt she will plead the fifth, maybe, but I think she should be brought in for deposition, and we have that in the works.
Let's talk about the track that some have been talking about, and that is at the state level as opposed to your committee and the federal level. We saw today the Attorney General Uthmeier of Florida on Twitter saying Fauci's lack of candor to Congress is unbelievable. My office is launching an investigation into Dr. Fauci. It's past time we got the truth of what happened during COVID. Do you feel like this track may be more fruitful in producing answers from Dr. Fauci?
You know, I don't know. I don't know the legal aspect of whether or not they can place charges at the state level. I do know that there's a possibility that state charges and that they would be exempt from a pardon. But I don't know specifically whether there are any charges. My job is to make sure that we never fund this gain-of-function dangerous research again. And so I've introduced legislation to have a presidential commission. President Trump would appoint the committee members, and then they would study all research, classified and unclassified, to make sure we're not doing this dangerous research.
Senator Paul, let me ask you, because millions of Americans watch this hearing today, and they, like you, were frustrated to see the Fifth being invoked 111 times and literally not a single question that Anthony Fauci would answer. What do you say to Americans who are frustrated, that feel that ultimately accountability may never be achieved?
I think there's a legal question that should be pursued, and this is why we'll push this with the Department of Justice. And the legal question is, if you're pardoned, can you really claim the Fifth? The Fifth Amendment is to claim immunity from self-incrimination. But if you've already been given immunity, you can't self-incriminate unless you lie. So the only way he could incriminate himself today was if he lied. For example, if I ask him, did you delete 5,000 records during your tenure? Did you have your assistant delete these emails? If he says yes, even though it's a crime, he's admitting to a crime he's been pardoned for. So he wouldn't have any immunity. I don't know how you plead the Fifth Amendment to something you've already been granted immunity for. But this is a legal decision, and that's why I think it needs to be pursued in court. Whether or not a pardon, you can continue to claim the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination when you've already been given immunity. So I think there are some really important legal questions here.
So you anticipate challenging the legal viability of the pardon itself?
Well, I think that we push it to the Department of Justice. I can't bring charges because I have no prosecutorial power. The Department of Justice can. And what I'm looking towards doing in the next week or so is drawing up a legal brief citing legal precedent for the Fifth Amendment not being appropriate for someone who's been pardoned. I think as we put those arguments forward, then we'll leave it up to the Department of Justice, but we will strongly encourage them that they should pursue this.
In just a few seconds I've got left, one final question, Senator, and that is your reaction to your fellow Democrats, Ranking Member Peters and others, and how they handled this today.
I don't understand it. I don't understand how they can see 1 million Americans die from dangerous research funded by the government and not be upset about that, not want to get to the bottom of that. So they complained they didn't have records. I have put all the records on an internet site for committee members for a year. Do you know how many Democrats looked at it? They have to get a password. Not one of them asked for the password. We told their offices, you can look at all of this. So they don't seem to care about the truth. I think they want to defend the government more than they want to get to the truth of, did your government actually fund something that led to a pandemic that killed 1 million Americans? I don't know why they would not want to know the truth.
That's something else. Senator Rand Paul, thank you for your time. We look to continue to follow this and see where it goes.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.